Calling to order the Monday, May 20th, 2019 regular meeting of the 37th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Councilmember Gavin.
Here.
Councilmember Hennon.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman. Here. And Mayor Turbach.
Here. Our first order of business is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support. Motion by Councilmember Dean with support from Councilmember Hennon. Are there any changes or additions? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennon.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
And Turbach.
Yes. Tonight's agenda has been approved. At this time, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge. With us today is Pastor Zach Dunlap.
Let's pray. Good and loving God, maker of us all, we may not see eye to eye on a whole host of matters. We have different backgrounds and political persuasions, different economic circumstances, and views on the road diet. But we are gathered together in this space because we care about the city of Berkeley. Thank you for the ability to live, work, and worship, to dine, shop, learn, and play in this wonderful community. Even when we don't see eye to eye, help us to serve well together as we seek the common good. Empower us to assume positive intent in one another, and embolden us to set aside our own personal preferences as we together seek the common good. Even when we lack complete knowledge, as all of us do, help us to seek knowledge, to pursue wisdom, and to apply what we learn. Draw us closer together as we build up this city. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have reached the citizens' comments portion of our agenda tonight. When you may present your thoughts on issues that are not included on tonight's agenda, council members will not engage you in discussion, but if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or department of the city, please sign your name on the sheet provided on the clerk's table. You may speak on a specific agenda item while it is being considered, and please remember when you come to the microphone, state your name and city of residence.
Good evening, Wendy Zabramski, Berkeley. Actually, this is a Kudos. I just want to comment on how Berkeley took it upon themselves to make it a little more difficult for the e-cigarettes and such. As I read today that Mitch McConnell in Washington introduced a bill to make the age of 21 for anybody to be able to purchase e-cigarettes, etc. And I really have kudos to Berkeley for taking the steps it has already.
Thank you, Wendy.
My name's Leonard Grossman, Berkeley, and I just want to know how long this lane on Coolidge is going to be one lane, because it's really backed up traffic. I haven't seen any bicycles using it, and I really think one lane is ridiculous. And I think we should leave it at 2, like it was, because of the amount of traffic. So I just want to express my displeasure of making it one lane.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Okay, seeing nobody else clamoring to the microphone, although I've said that before and somebody else has stood up, so, okay. We will move on from citizens' comments to our order of business today. Ms. Boucher, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Approval of minutes. Matter of approving the minutes of the 37th City Council meeting on Monday, May 6, 2019. Warrant. Matter of approving warrant number 1338. Proclamation number P0619, matter of declaring the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and Resolution R1119, matter of celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution giving women the right to vote.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Stedman. Any changes? Seeing none. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Dean,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Hennan,
Yes.
Stedman,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Blanchard,
Yes.
and Turbrack.
Yes. Tonight's consent agenda has passed. We now move on to our regular agenda. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 1 on tonight's regular agenda?
Recognitions, presentations, matter of any recognitions or presentations from the consent agenda.
We have 2 of them this evening. First up is Proclamation P0619, which I will be reading. Are there any representatives from Moms Demand Action that would like to come up to the microphone, please? As soon as I am done, you will have
Okay.
time to comment. A proclamation of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, declaring the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of Berkeley to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Whereas every day, 100-plus Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average, there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other high-income countries, and whereas protecting public safety in the communities that serve is the mayor and council's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best and are most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas in January of 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should now be celebrating her 22nd birthday. And whereas to honor Hadia and the 100 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 7th, 2019, the first Friday in June, as the 5th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when they're out in the woods. And orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June in 2019, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 7th, 2019, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas by wearing orange on June 7th, 2019, I just read that. Whereas we renew our commitment to renew gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, the City of Berkeley proclaims that Mayor Turbrack and the City of Berkeley and the Council of Berkeley declares the first Friday in June, June 7th, 2019, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Proclaimed this 20th day of May, 2019, at a regular meeting of the Berkeley City Council, Dan Turbrack, Mayor.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Mary Miller Strobel. I'm a resident of Berkeley, and I would just like to thank the council and the city of Berkeley for becoming one of the many communities in Southeast Michigan to recognize June 7th as Wear Orange Day. And it's very important to me personally, but as a member of Moms Demand Action as well, to acknowledge the survivors of gun violence, because there is a ripple effect that lasts in our communities. It is estimated that about 115 people are impacted by one gun death. So if you have not been personally impacted by a gun death, chances are you know someone who has. So I would like to thank Berkeley for acknowledging this day and doing what they can to honor individuals lost as a result of gun violence and support the survivors who have had to endure these tragedies. And I appreciate the city of Berkeley playing a role in this important event. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for all your work. We now move on to the second item. I've asked Councilmember Stedman to read R 1119.
This is a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, giving women the right to vote. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background across America have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of the United States in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas the women of this nation initiated the most significant women's movement in history, the need for women's suffrage. And whereas despite the strong opposition, the inspiration and determination of women nationwide brought about the extraordinary accomplishment, the right for women to vote. And whereas on June 10th, 1919, Michigan women cast their vote when Michigan voters ratified the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And whereas the state of Michigan was the second state to ratify the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. And whereas on August 26, 1920, voters across the nation secured the right to vote for women to vote when the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States was ratified, empowering American women and declaring for the first time that they, like men, deserve all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, stating, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." And whereas August 26, 2020 will mark the 100th anniversary of the passage of the National Suffrage Amendment, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, guaranteeing women the right to vote. And now, therefore, the City of Berkeley resolves that the City of Berkeley remembers and celebrates the historic women who fought for their right to vote and recognizes the courage and inspiration of these bold women to change the course of history. Be it further resolved that the City of Berkeley will fly the 19th Amendment Victory Flag June 10th, 2019 through June 14th, 2019 to commemorate the state of Michigan's ratifying the 19th Amendment, and August 24th, 2020 through August 28th, 2020 to commemorate the ratification of the 19th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Introduced and passed at a regular City Council meeting on Monday, May 20th, 2019. Daniel J. Turbrick, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Stedman, for reading that resolution to commemorate a truly historic date in the history of not only our state but our country. So thank you so much. Seeing no more items on item number 1, Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 2 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M3219, matter of appointing Micah Bradley to the Beautification Advisory Committee as a student member with a term to expire October 1st, 2019.
Is there a motion to approve M3219?
Motion to approve.
Support. Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Beautification Advisory Committee does have provisions to have student memberships. While a regular member would get a 3-year term, the ordinance specifies that student members run along basically with the school year, which is why you see Mr. Bradley's term expiring October 1st, 2019. We hope that he really enjoys his time and wants to stay on with the body, but the current term does expire on a date specific. So other than that, I have no other items for you.
Just that Mr. Bradley certainly went above and beyond, providing all of his requisite experience, which is very impressive. The organizations he's involved in, Detroit Children's Choir, the Berkeley Rugby Club, UNICEF Club, Girl Up, National Junior Honor Society, Student Council, and many others. It's a very well put together resume. Very, very impressed. With that, are there any comments? Yes.
It's Micah's a girl,
Oh, my goodness, did I say that?
first of all. And second of all, she came to our last Beautification Committee meeting, and she had such energy and so many great ideas that we felt we needed to appoint her.
Well, I think you've certainly made the right decision based on, as I mentioned, all of her accomplishments. Not only a member of NJHS, but I want to make sure she was president of the NJHS as well as and student council secretary. I think she will make a tremendous addition to the board. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3219?
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 3 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M3319, matter of authorizing KiK Cancer, 22503 Stevens, St. Clair Shores, Michigan, to conduct a KiK Cancer Drive in the city of Berkeley at 11 Mile Road in Coolidge and 12 Mile Road in Greenfield. The dates requested are from Wednesday, May 29, 2019 through Saturday, June 1st, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. During these days, representatives of the KiK Cancer will wear reflective vests and collect money.
Is there a motion to approve M3319?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Support?
Support from Councilmember Hennan. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll see in the packet there is the application materials as well as a memo from the Public Safety Director who has reviewed this. You'll note that his recommendation was that they did not solicit at Coolidge and 12 Mile Road as originally applied for in the packet. Public Safety Director Kane did speak with the applicant, informed him that we do have a bit of construction in that area, and it was not likely the best fit for soliciting donations, and they agreed, which is why you see that reflected in the motion that brought before you here today. You will note also that KiK Cancer is a brand new organization. They don't have a lot of the history that we do ask that applicants provide in order to help the council make the best decision possible here. They simply don't have that background for you, so we were unable to put it forth. They do have an affiliation with a group that was previously here, the Second Chance Network, as you see through some of their application materials here. That we do have a little bit more of a track record with as far as them doing a drive similar to this, where they're asking donations from drivers at intersections. You'll see, again, we'll say that the items reflected in the packet here. Unfortunately, the applicant was not able to be here. He sent a email, I believe, to the council prior to the event saying he was not going to be able to have a representative here for that. So other than that, the information is provided.
Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. My biggest concern about this is that the application has got a lot of areas in it that I am concerned about. As City Manager did say, we've got some history with this group from Second Chance Network, and we, in the past, have denied Second Chance Network because they came in and used homeless people to solicit, did not have them properly trained, and they were very aggressive. They were reaching into cars. They were not getting out of the roadway. And I'm concerned about that. If you look at their statements, when they talk about how they're going to do this, is we anticipate having unpaid volunteers. In the event that we are in need of more participants, they'll be paid $10 per hour. Candy will be handed out and transportation given on an unneeded basis for volunteers. So I am concerned that they're going to be bringing in volunteers again that are not trained. and I'm concerned about the safety for the volunteers. The other big concern of mine is I looked through their packet. They don't have a federal number yet, but as you look at the incorporation documents, they're not signed. So I don't know what their status is. So I've got a lot of concern about this. So,
Additional questions or comments from council? Councilmember Dean?
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, there isn't a representative from KiK Cancer here, because my question really too is, what's the ratio of dollars collected going to the organization and then to the recipients? They mentioned cancer research and people struggling with cancer. I just feel like we have to do some due diligence. I am very compassionate and supportive to anyone that's struggling, not only with cancer, but any illness. But I think that as a council, as a city, we need to know who it is that's asking us to utilize our city and to also put an additional strain on our city's public safety department. I'm cautious with the road diet just starting right now, that these intersections that they want to solicit donations on certainly are in the Coolidge area and will be impacted. So I also looked them up on the internet. I could not find a website. And I know that there's a gentleman's name in here, but I just had a few extra questions, and it would have been nice to be able to address the organization directly. So,
Councilmember Hennan?
Yeah, so when I first saw this, I did not know the background with the previous organization that Councilmember Blanchard mentioned, but my thought was, I know nothing about them, and is this a scam? I have no reason to think it is, but I have no evidence, and there's not enough background to know that it isn't. So that also gave me pause, just the lack of history. It's, don't want to be suspicious of everyone, but do want to be careful that, we aren't being taken advantage of. And the comment of what percentage of this goes to the organization, to actually help people would be a significant indicator of, where things are going.
Thank you. Councilmember Blanchard?
my other concern is that, again, they did not provide any financial information because they said they're a new organization. But I believe that anybody that's filing for incorporation should have a budget for the upcoming year, which they did not provide us, which would give us some idea, as Councilman Dean said, as the ratio of what they're planning on taking in to what they plan on spending or passing out in their charitable mode. So that was another concern I had. I didn't see any financials that would support their case whatsoever. And I went on the internet and looked, and when I put in KiK Cancer, I get Kids Kicking Cancer, which is a national organization. When I narrowed it down to strictly KiK Cancer, there's two organizations that come up, one in California and one in Sparta, Wisconsin, but nothing in Michigan. So the longer I looked, the more suspicious I got.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm curious, given the additional insights and perspectives from this group here, if there's an opportunity to table this, unless there's some kind of pressing time factor that we're unaware of in their application, meaning if they could pick a different weekend, down the road. I think to my colleague's point, certainly we'd like to help move something like this forward if it makes sense, but with a few additional questions and diligence, we could make a more informed decision one way or another to support this organization or give them some feedback.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So as has been mentioned a few times, we have some experience with the group that is affiliated with KiK Cancer, and as Councilmember Blanchard mentioned, some of those experiences from a safety perspective didn't quite work out the way we wanted. Now, that being said, the last thing that we're trying to do is stop somebody who's trying to raise awareness or funds or help for cancer. I think we can all agree that nobody here likes that or likes cancer, okay? But we also do get a number of these asked, and we have a pretty strict set of information that needs to be provided before we will consider and a history and approvals, everything being signed, knowing where things are going, where all of the money, the percentage, those are very important to us so that we can, one, support the group safely, and we can know that our public safety and everybody else has done their due diligence prior to approving this. Now, I would agree we're not going to meet again before this, but I don't know that the desire to stop raising funds for cancer is going to cease if we don't do it this weekend. I think there would be opportunity potentially to bring this back once all of the relevant information. You know, in this day and age, it's very easy to build a website, and a warning flag has been mentioned. If there is not a website, even if it is not necessarily the most extensive website, there usually is a website. And the fact that there isn't somewhere where we can find more information readily is certainly a flag.
There's not even a Facebook page I could find.
Well, if there's not a Facebook page, then it doesn't exist.
Well, but to that point, they mentioned their Facebook page.
On the
and
reference,
it-
yeah, they
and it-
reference
And I
it,
could
yeah.
not find it either.
So we have a motion on the table to approve this. It seems to me, at least, that council is not ready to approve this without some additional information. Is that
Correct.
Is that fair? Mr. Attorney? Oh, sir. Well, come on, and then I'll ask Mr. Attorney.
Hi, Wendy Zabramski, still Berkeley. You know, in the last couple of years with Second Chance, I've had questions about, it's nothing from the area, and this is St. Clair Shores. You know, it's wonderful to help out organizations, but I know we have many local organizations. They could solicit in St. Clair Shores. Just my opinion, you know, especially when there's not enough backup here. It's almost like, you know, they're referencing, you know, because of Second Chances being here before, you know, they're here. It just sounds really shady to me. I thought Second Chances sounded pretty shady when I read through their stuff the last couple of years.
Thank you, Wendy. Mr. Attorney, we have a motion on the table. If we want to table this item, do we have to vote this down, the approval first? It's already been approved? The motion
as made was to approve the permit. And so if council wished to entertain a different type of motion, it would take action on this particular motion that's pending. And then, depending on the outcome, it could consider another motion. For example, to table it until completed materials consistent with the city's permit application requirements are provided to the city.
Well, since we have to vote on this motion anyway, and it seems to me that the motion is most likely going to be voted down at this point, I think city administration could probably communicate that to them, that this is why this motion was voted down. We would be willing to look at it in the future, provided we had X, Y, and Z. I think that satisfies everything. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a couple additional things, even if it did come back to us. Well, one additional thing, the Greenfield and 12 Mile, that's somewhere I don't think we've traditionally seen soliciting happening. And even though the public safety note is to stay on the Berkeley side, it's a lot faster road. And I'm also concerned if they would, even if they stay on the Berkeley side, are they going to be in Greenfield, in Greenfield Road soliciting? That seems like a bad idea. So I would want clarification on that as well.
Certainly. Anything else from council before we vote on this in terms of what we would be looking for in the future should this come back to us? Okay, I think we have requisite notes on our expectations. With that, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3319?
Hennan,
No.
Stedman,
No.
Baker,
No.
Blanchard,
No.
Dean,
No.
Gavin,
No.
and Turbrack.
No. M3319 Did not pass, and we now move on to item number 4. Ms. Boucher, would you please read that item?
Motion number M3419, matter of considering an application to hold the Corporate Cup Relays on Saturday, June 15, 2019, from 7:45 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. The route will begin at Anderson Middle School, Hurley Field, and will include various local roads for the Midwest Corporate Athletic Association, 4443 Allegheny Drive, Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Is there a motion to approve M3419?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mayor Pro Tem with support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an event that's been around for a couple of years, but is expanding. We do have your application here in the packet, as well as a memo from Public Safety. They make a recommendation for approval. Included in the packet is a race map, including the routes where the races are going to be held on public streets, as well as a schedule of those events to be held on public roads. This is not all of the events throughout the day are going to be on the streets. It looks like the morning events are going to be the ones that are going to be utilizing public streets. I know Mr. Joe Baldwin is here to represent this application. He also included a memo explaining the event, its history, and a little bit about how they intend to administer the event for council's consideration.
Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you for Thank you for considering for having me here. Briefly, just to go through, the Midwest Corporate Athletic Association has been around, as far as I'm aware, since at least the early 80s. This is not an organization that was developed through the companies. This is all about individual athletes within these corporations. Put this organization together, put the teams together, and put on this event. And it's about promoting athletic activity, teamwork, and camaraderie between members of different companies. So this event does not solicit donations directly at the event. The teams, the Midwest Corporate Athletic Association puts on the event. The teams actually solicit the donations from their individual members and then make those send those monies to the charities. The teams pay fees, a per person participant fee to the Midwest Corporate Athletic Association to cover the costs of putting on the event, and then extra monies left over aside from money to start. The next year's event are then donated to those two charities that are designated. The two charities actually being Michigan Special Olympics and Dearborn Friends of the Dearborn Animal Shelter. The events we're asking for, we've done the track events in the afternoon the last 3 years at Berkeley. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the 5K and 10K road races into the city, so we've actually been having to do those down at Belle Isle, which has been quite a strain on us. I know that there's a climate now where road races are a little more welcome in the city. I know you put on, some additional for your Celtic Festival and Berkeley Days. So what we're asking to do is put on those 5K, 10K races in the city of Berkeley that morning. 7:45 is the first event. First of all, we will not be closing any roads. Per the agreement that I've gone through with Lieutenant Kaepernick of your police department, we will cone off the middle of the roads where there's two-way traffic. We will have several cones at each intersection to make people aware that something's going on. We'll have volunteers out there, as many as we can out there, to help coordinate people if they're trying to get away from their home, to get them around the runners safely, if they're trying to get to their home, to get around safely. It's all about safety out there. So again, we're not looking to close any roads. And these actually are the same courses that you use for the Berkeley Days runs. So I know you're all familiar with those. A lot of residences out there, so there's a big focus on making sure that we don't inconvenience the local residents too much. Notification would be if we have approval tonight, we have a letter drafted to go out to the residences through their email and Facebook to notify them immediately of the event. And then the weekend before, we'll be going door to door to all the homes on the courses and the ones landlocked to manually give them the notification to remind them the weekend before of what's going on, and to ask that just everybody be safety conscious. We'll work to get everybody through and not inconvenience anybody any more than necessary. Per agreement, the last event is at 9 o'clock. By 10:30, we will have our footprint completely gone, cones picked up, and the rest of our events are held at Hurley. Hurley Field. One other thing to mention is that, so we hire the local track coach, Les Hale, to help us put on our event, and he brings out the track team and parents, and they come out, and they're the ones that help us put this on. So we pay the track coach, and then we also pay a stipend to the athletic department, specifically to the track team, and that helps offset their costs for equipment and travel, whatnot, for that track team, and it saves them a number of other fundraisers that they would have to do, as the coaches told us, by coming and doing this event. So they're getting both money to offset their costs, and they're also getting additional volunteer hours that they need. So that is our event.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baldwin, for being here to give us a little background and tell us a little bit more about this. Mr. Baumgartner, question from our end. What would this entail for city staff?
Unique to this event, Mr. Baldwin has stepped up, and is going to be able to minimize this as much as possible. We still have a public safety presence throughout, but it certainly minimizes the need that we have of what is typical when we have DPW at several of the major intersections. Mr. Baldwin's committed to minimizing that. So it's going to be very little on the DPW staff at this point. So we might still have a foreman and perhaps somebody out there just providing support if the need arises. But again, it's very minimal compared to what we typically are called upon to do for these types of events.
Okay. Additional questions? Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're going to provide lead and trail for the run?
I'm sorry?
Would you provide the lead and trail for the run?
So yeah, we have a lead cyclist that we'll have out there, and then we'll have somebody behind the last person as well.
And these are all athletes that are used to running it. One of the problems we've had last Saturday is somebody enters the 10K race and then walks the whole thing, so they're out there till noon.
No, we don't generally have anybody out there till noon. These are all athletes. Not everybody is a top athlete, but we do also have time restrictions. But no, they will not be out there till noon. We start our last event at 9 a.m., the 5K. Our last participant is usually in just after 10 o'clock, with 10:05 in that range. So again, my people, I have a lot of experience putting on races in other cities, Detroit Marathon, Detroit Thanksgiving Turkey Trot Parade races. So I have people that I'll have out there that will pick up the course behind those last participants. So by 10:30, our footprint will be gone, and we won't be out there till noon. Just to state one other thing, so in conversations with Lieutenant Kaepernick and with Mr. Schuler from DPW, we're not going to close streets. I am providing all the cones that we need for the road. There's a map, actually our equipment map in your packet. So there is no cost to DPW at this point as far as equipment or manpower to put anything out. And Lieutenant Kaepernick has required me to have 2 police officers, which my organization will pay for those police officers. So there will be no debt to the city for that. My organization will take care of that.
Do you have any requirement for medical support above and beyond just normal on-call ambulance?
So yes, in the past we've had an on-call ambulance through the school, and so we run that through the school. Les Hale, our track coach, is the one who manages that.
Okay, thank you.
So unfortunately, it appears that I am disqualified from running in this, as athletes only are allowed. Unfortunate, yeah.
Do the charities change from year to year, like who benefits from your funds? Or is it Special Olympics and the Friends of the Dearborn Animal Shelter every year?
At this point, yes. Special Olympics has been a staple with us for a very long time. We had the Michigan Humane Society a number of years ago. We weren't getting the support day of that we wanted from them, and we switched to Friends of Dearborn Animal Shelter. We tend to stick with our charities as long as they're active and appreciative. Once in a while, we do get recommendations to look at other charities,
Okay.
And our board votes on whether or not we want to consider those.
Okay, I have 2 more things. Do the students get community service hours, the ones from Berkeley High School that are assisting with the event that day?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Then my last thing is on your June 2017 account balance, you have $273.24, and then you have all the entries of the incoming funds, which gives you a total for 2018 is $9,443.70. outgoing costs of $7,321.28. I think I'm on page 12.
Trying to get there.
With a remaining account balance at $2,122.42, which is the correct sum if you subtract the outgoing from what you had. But then when I look down to money donated to charity organizations, that total is $5,255.50. So I don't know where that came from.
Sorry, I just got to that page.
That's okay.
5,000.
So if I add the $3,149 to the Special Olympics plus $2,106.50 to the animal shelter, I get $5,255.50, yet your remaining account balance is $2,122.42.
So this is the money that the teams raise to donate to the charities directly.
Oh, so it's a whole separate...
Completely separate.
Oh, okay.
So when we finish paying off all our debts for the
Yes.
event, we have to set aside seed money to get started next
Yes.
year. If our organization has any money left over, then we'll split that in half and donate it to the two charities. But yeah, the numbers at the bottom are
Okay.
what the teams raise for.
Okay, thank you for
the charities.
clarifying that.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay. Additional questions? Seeing none, again, thank you for being here and answering all of our questions, having all of the requisite paperwork, some of the things that we just spoke about on the prior item already here, and everything in good order. So with that being the case, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3419?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
And Turbeck.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We now move on to item number 5. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 5 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M3519, matter of appointing the Chief Innovation Officer Stan Lissica as the City of Berkeley's representative and City Manager Matthew C. Baumgarten as the alternate representative to the Intergovernmental Cable Communications Authority, ICCA Board, and instruct the City Clerk to send a copy of this motion to the ICCA Board.
Is there a motion to approve M3519?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Gavin, with support from Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We previously had the Deputy City Manager occupy this role as representing Berkeley on the ICA Board. That position being recently terminated, we were looking for a representative, and since we already have our communications coordinator sitting on the CMN TV Board, we needed somebody other than that person to sit on ICA. And so they are related organizations, and you can't sit on both boards. As it happened, Stan Lissica was the perfect candidate for it, given his background and given some of the areas that his position now covers. And so he's, as non-surprisingly, Stan stepped up and said he'll absolutely do it, and we'll be backing him up on that.
Well, and while he's in the back, we should probably vote on this quickly before he comes out here to plead his case. Are there any questions about Stan or M3519? I do not anticipate too many. With that, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3519?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
And Turbeck.
Yes. Thank you, Stan. We now move on to item number 6 on tonight's agenda. Ms. Boucher?
Motion number M3619, matter of appointing the Public Works Director, Derek Schuler, as the City of Berkeley's representative, and City Manager Matthew Baumgarten as the alternate representative to the Southeastern Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority, SACRA, Board of Trustees for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, and instruct the City Clerk to send a copy of this motion to the SACRA Board.
Is there a motion to approve M3619?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of 2 related items. We aren't proposing any change from the years previous, at least for the last, now I think 2 years or so. This has been the layout we've had. We've had Derek running point on this. He does a phenomenal job. He's just represents City of Berkeley very well. on this board. And again, with myself backing him up, so far it's only been very, very few instances where that's had to happen. Derek has been a consistent face on this body. As you know, SACRA is one of two related organizations. The Resource Recovery Authority section of it handles refuse pickup and recycling, and helps us actually coordinate removal of our yard waste as well. And so a very important, crucial function for the city. And through Derek, we've had great representation on this board.
And as we know, Mr. Schuler is very well respected in the community, as Mr. Baumgarten mentioned, and serves not only the city of Berkeley well, but the greater region as well with his presence. Any additional questions or comments on Mr. Schuler and SACRA? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3619?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 7 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M3719, matter of appointing the Public Works Director, Derek Schuler, as the City of Berkeley's representative, and City Manager Matthew Baumgarten as the alternate representative to the Southeastern Oakland County Water Authority, SACWA, Board of Trustees for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, and instruct the City Clerk to send a copy of this motion to the SACWA Board.
Is there a motion to approve M3719?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, sir. Much of the same to be said about this item. This is the water side. So this is, if you pardon the pun, pooling of several communities. Basically, it's our purchasing power, and this is the way that we purchase water from now GLEWA, the Great Lakes Water Authority. So instead of the City of Berkeley trying to make deals on loan based on its consumption, we're now part of a much larger organization that purchases water. Again, Derek's well-known, well-respected on this body, and has been Berkeley's representative for at least the last 3 years now.
Again, same characteristics apply to Mr. Schuler. Still well-respected in the community and also regionally, and we certainly appreciate him representing us as part of SACWA. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3719?
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 8, please.
Motion number M3819, matter of accepting a proposal from A&R Seal Coating, 4882 Pontiac Lake Road, Waterford, Michigan, 48328, to perform various repair and maintenance activities to the library's parking lot for $8,850 from parking lot repair account 101-738-976-001.
Is there a motion to approve M3819?
Motion to approve.
Support. Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Hennan. Mr. Baumgarten, before we turn it over to our reigning humanitarian of the year.
I was going to say, on the topic of well-respected individuals in our community, Library Director Matt Church has put out a solicitation or request for proposals on Mitten, which is, you know, is our normal means for gathering these types of responses. In the packet, you'll see the summary of the bids that we received back, as well as the document itself and a memo from Mr. Church.
Mr. Humanitarian,
all right,
floor is
thank
yours.
you. Thank you very much. So this is just routine maintenance for the library parking lot. We last did a maintenance effort in 2015 for the parking lot. This is probably going to be the last time that we can do this maintenance cycle before we have to look more comprehensively at a bigger parking lot project. So this will be seal coating, restriping, and then actually cutting out some of the asphalt and replacing the pieces in especially bad condition. So we did go out to bid through Mitten BidNet. It went out to 436 suppliers, and we received just one bid response. A&R was recommended by DPW. We've worked with them now 2015 and recommended to work with them again in 2019.
Questions for our library director? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for bringing this before us and helping to take care of the parking experience so folks can enjoy the library that much more. If this were to move forward, what would be the approximate time frame and duration of such an effort?
So the bid document specified that the work hours would be Friday night after the library closes and all the way through Monday right before we open. So we'd be looking at most likely a Saturday work day and then a Sunday kind of cure, and then be back in business. So I've tentatively talked with the company, and we looked at June 1st so that we could get it out of the way, and hopefully we'll have good weather that weekend if this moves forward.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, that was going to be my second thought, if you have like a rainy day, you know, backup day, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we'd like to get this done in this fiscal year, so we just kick it to the next weekend and
Right.
take a look at our schedule, but hopefully June 1st would work.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions for our director?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just real quick, so is the scope of work on this one the same as what was done in 2015?
Yes, just with the addition of actually cutting out some of the asphalt and putting in new.
Okay. And so 4 years is roughly the expected life out of the work that's done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so just wanting to stay on top of it, keeping it sealed so their cracks don't get bigger and chunks come out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions for Mr. Church? No? Well, thank you for providing all of the relevant information.
Thank you.
And with seeing no more questions, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3919, M3818, sorry.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Now we will move on to M3919. Ms. Boucher, would you please read that item?
Motion number M3919, matter concerning a repayment agreement with the Berkeley Downtown Development Authority, DDA.
Is there a motion to approve M3919?
So moved.
Support. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, supported by Councilmember Hennan. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, we discussed in the course of our Coolidge deliberations the need for a repayment agreement to be codified into a document signed and approved by both parties. This does capture that and captures the conversation that we've had. This would have the city, of course, fronting the money to make any changes if we do decide that 12 months is not meeting the safety and functionality standards that we discussed in the previous meetings. Then the city would step in, return the lanes, return Coolidge to 4 lanes as it was before, and then front that money, and then have the DDA repay back those monies to make that fund full. This was likely would come from the Major Streets Fund, so not necessarily a taxpayers fund, but still it would make the Major Streets Fund whole again. And this would happen over the course of 3 years. It would be not even a budgetary item. Basically, the city collecting on the DDA's behalf would essentially just withhold that portion for an even 3 years.
Okay. Questions on this agenda item from council? Seeing no questions from council, you did a wonderful job of explaining what this exactly is, why it is here, and what will happen in the case that we decide to make this decision, how the city will be made whole. Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on M3919?
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. M3919 has been approved. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 10 on tonight's agenda?
Public hearing, matter of holding a public hearing to consider the proposed 2019-20 annual operating budget and supporting tax rates for the city of Berkeley, Michigan.
I will open the public hearing at 7:54 on the 2019-2020 budget.
Joshua Hunter, Berkeley resident. Mr. Mayor, there's 2 items of concern for me in the budget. First is regarding the DDA. I know there's little council can do in regards to the line items in the DDA budget, but I'm just seeing growing operational and administrative waste. Items such as office space rental, conferences, legal services, and other contractual services are growing in cost. I think the DDA's budget should be rejected and only approved with operational amounts similar to last year. Going forward, I'd like to understand what projects the DDA has implemented in the past 10 years to justify the tax capture. The amount they capture from the city's general fund is rather substantial, so I'd like to understand the value they're providing to the properties downtown. I think it's time to start that discussion. Secondly, regarding the underfunded post-retirement healthcare benefit obligations, I see there's no intention to fund it beyond the pay-as-you-go amount right now in the next fiscal year. When council was discussing the corrective action plan several months ago, they voted with the pay-as-you-go schedule to provide flexibility for the plan that was approved for the state Treasury Department. And according to that schedule that was approved, it would take over 20 years to fund these retirement benefits just at 40%. And that, of course, makes a lot of future assumptions that may not pan out, and actuary advised to increase the contributions ahead of schedule. And then there's the pension annual required contribution that's also increasing beyond inflation. And funding the ARC will take priority over funding of these OPEB obligations in the future. So I think we need some sort of funding policy in place, even if it's a relatively minor amount, to ensure this is a priority for future councils, even if it's only $20,000 annually. Since I mentioned 20,000, I identified some line items, some possibilities to cut. The MML conference reimbursements of $6,000, the city memberships totaling over $21,000. There was a $1,600 recreation fund appropriation for Netflix. I don't know what that is, but I'd like to understand what that is more. And the library has downloadable content subscriptions. That was $12,000. I've used many of those services. I think it's nice, but I think from my perspective, if you can afford the internet connection to hardware, there's little reason to subsidize if there's other priorities. And another possibility I'd like to discuss is applying a portion of the salary increases for employees that are currently entitled to these OPEB benefits, and apply those portion of those salary increases towards OPEB trust. It's my understanding there's about 69 active employees entitled to these benefits. So I'd like to hear that discussed today. So now perhaps the items I mentioned shouldn't be cut, but I think it's important to remember that the net regarding the community center that was proposed, that would have had a $90,000 per year cost to the general fund according to the city's numbers. So I'd like to understand what would have been cut from this budget to support the operations if the community center proposal had passed. So I think getting something down, well, saying we'll be flexible, if you don't put something down, though, it won't actually happen, even if it's a small amount. So I think we need to begin funding these obligations now while the economy is doing great. Otherwise, we won't be able to do so. We should also consider the possibility that the state could pass laws with stricter funding requirements in the future. I think it's important to make the hard decisions now rather than later, because the challenges are only going to grow. I don't want to see the city in that position, so I think it's time to start to pre-funding the obligations now, even if it's a relatively minor amount. So, Mr. Mayor, I would ask that you and council to please consider these points tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody else that would like to comment during the public hearing?
Wendy Zabramski, still Berkeley. I too have a lot of concerns about the DDA budget, expanding an administrative, space and such when, as a director, she should be, having her own, the DDA should not be funding where her office space is and such. It works pretty well that they have their meeting at the library. Right now, she's proven that she seems to be unable to follow through with videotaping as open meeting requires that we've asked and have personally videotaped ourselves in a time I was ill and unable to be there. Again, the film fails, and it has failed at least a half a dozen times when she tries to videotape it. I just feel that some of these extra administrative costs should not be, the responsibility of the DDA budget, that she is hired as a director and as a consultant, and it should be her incurred cost, not the DDA budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Going once, twice. Seeing nobody else coming to speak during the public hearing, I will close the public hearing at 8 o'clock. And we will move on to agenda item number 11. Ms. Boucher?
Resolution number R1219, matter of approving resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, approving the 2019-20 through 2025-26 capital improvements plan of the City of Berkeley, Michigan.
Is there a motion to approve R12?
19.
R919.
Motion to approve.
Support. Motion approved by Councilmember Dean with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we've been discussing, the capital improvements plan is the way which we look out many, many years, in this case all the way out through fiscal year 25/26, so basically ending in June 30th, 2026. We look out that far ahead to try to gauge what capital improvements that we would need to make around the community. These are substantial investments that we make in physical objects, such as our parks, such as our buildings, our facilities, our roads, any of the public infrastructure. You'll see there's as we've discussed in the past and in the budget book that we provided to council, you'll see we're really excited actually at the level of which we are funding our capital improvements right now. We still feel though, I would categorize this as a bit of a catch-up budget. We are still catching up with some things that even 10 years ago just were beyond our grasp, unfortunately. So we're very happy with the amount of investments that we're proposing here and then looking forward to the future as well.
Questions, or not necessarily questions, at least comments from members of council on the capital improvements plan for the city of Berkeley. Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, I'll be voting for this, but I just want to observe the DDA section, I find completely unrealistic. They're 1% of our budget, but over the next 7 years, looking to spend 35% of the capital budget. And I think they're just imaginary numbers. We need to, that's a number of years out, projected out. We need to make sure as we get closer to that time that we actually have something that's realistic there.
Absolutely, sir.
I also want to point out there were budget hearings last Monday and Tuesday that the council held with the respective directors of each of the departments as we went through this budget line item by line item. There were some residents there, but the meeting was also taped, I believe, for the public, and some of the questions and comments that we heard already were also addressed by members of council, and there was discussions on those as well. I know that's the process, and most of you are probably aware of that, but for those who may not be aware, the week before, obviously, we spent overly adequate amount of time going through this, and that's not meant to be a joke in any way or a slight. We spend a lot of time having these discussions, and they're certainly open to the public, and we do not have a ton of members of the public that typically come and speak to us at this meeting or during these budget work sessions, when would be a great time to have these kinds of discussions and engage and get various ideas and have conversations in a more work session type of environment as opposed to everything at the council meeting. With that, though, additional questions on the capital improvements plan. Councilmember Blanchard.
Quick comment. I concur with Councilmember Hennon. I think the numbers for the DDA were put in there kind of hastily. I think they need to be refined, and I think once they spend some time working those, that we will get a much more realistic out-year figure, and we should spend this next budget year working on that to make sure we understand what those are going to be.
Additional questions or comments? And as I mentioned, this was something that was discussed certainly at those budget hearings as well, and the same feedback there certainly applies today. That is, again, one part of an overall capital improvements plan that sees a lot of strong investment in our community moving forward. Any additional questions or comments on the CIP? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on R1219?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We'll now move on to item number 12, Ms. Boucher.
Resolution number R1319, matter of approving a resolution in the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, establishing a residential and commercial service fee for the collection and disposal of solid waste effective July 1st, 2019.
Is there a motion to approve R1319?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall from our budget sessions and from discussions years previously, this is mostly, most of the solid waste budget is in fact a pass-through. As I mentioned earlier, we are members of SACRA, the Southeast Oakland County Refuse Recovery Authority, who actually coordinates the biggest portions of our waste collection. So this year what we're proposing is, based on some of the numbers that we received from our authority, the fee of $60 billed quarterly throughout the year is all it would take for 52 weeks of wonderful service at the curb. We continue to pick up your trash, the recycling, yard waste. That is mostly funded for this fee here that we place, that we bill out quarterly, along with the water bills. In addition to that, that's the single-family home rate. There's also a little bit of a fee schedule here. So 2-yard, 4-yard, 6-yard, and 8-yard dumpsters also have a price specific, and contrast that with the amount of times that's to be picked up weekly. And that's how we bill out the same service for a lot of our commercial carriers. And so in total, you'll see essentially how we fund one of our most crucial and essential operations is through this. The only additional portion, the additional part of revenue that we have for the solid waste fund is a small millage, but again, that is dwindled down over the years of Headley rollbacks. So this is one of our main portions of funding for this fund.
Okay. Additional questions from council or comments from council on the collection and disposal of our solid waste? Questions? Anybody else? Seeing no additional questions on solid waste, as Mr. Baumgarten alluded to, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on R1319?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Now move on to item number 13 on our agenda.
Resolution number R1419, matter of approving a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, setting the charges for water and sewer services effective July 1st, 2019.
Is there a motion to approve R1419?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a little more complicated, but it lays out our entire fee schedule and how we bill out our water and sewage prices. Again, being part of a regional consortium, this once again is mostly fixed cost to us, and it's mostly pass-throughs to the SACWA, as well as the solid waste. The non-solid waste is billed through Oakland County Water Resource Commissioner's Office. My apologies. So that's how we fund most of this item. As you know, in the past, we've had significant conversations on how to fund more capital in our and our water infrastructure. And this is one of the ways that we've been doing this since 2017. We've had we reorganized the rates, worked with Plant Moran, and also looked at some of our regional partners in Saukwa, as well as Oakland County. And we reorganized the rates, made sure that they complied with significant case law on the topic. And since then, we've been able to generate we're on track to generate this year about $2.2 million for capital investment in our water infrastructure through this rate study. This year, we're proposing a 5.5% overall increase in those rates, which again, we keep those numbers very, very low by working with other communities like ourselves. We still, of the 14, I believe it's, of the 9 soccer communities that also work with us and have the same issues and the same problems, the same challenges, we remain second to the last behind only Bingham Farms as far as our water rates go. So we continue to be one of the lowest, best values in the region, and all the while making significant investments and improvements into our water infrastructure. So very excited to bring this portion of the budget to you guys. We think it's we're on the right track here, and with the being able to augment it with some of the infrastructure dollars approved by the community, we really are making inroads here that we're not possible 10 years ago. So we're very excited about this portion.
All right. Questions or comments on water and sewer rates? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, this is just a comment that, it is an increase, but our goal is to make the fund fully self-sufficient so that we don't have to go into debt to, take bonds or millages to be able to pay for the necessary upkeep of the system. We did ask during the budget session how many more updates are there going to need to be until we get to self-sufficiency, and we're going to start looking at that very soon. We have some of the older numbers from the original rate study, but we're going to reflect on that and make sure the assumptions are still up to date, and just wanted to make sure so people are clear that why the rates are going up. It's the only 2 realistic alternatives are this or a bond, and so it's got to be paid for one way or another, and this is the way we decided to go forward.
Thank you. Additional comments? As the city manager mentioned, in terms of the soccer communities that we are a part of, we certainly are on the lower end. Not that that necessarily means anything on its own, but it does mean that we are trying to do all that we can to control costs, and to Councilmember Hennon's point, not have to bond in the future, just to try to get us back to where we need to be in terms of being self-sufficient, self-sustaining in this fund. Are there any additional comments or questions from our folks out in the audience? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on R1419?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennon.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 14 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R1519, matter of approving a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkeley, Michigan, adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
Is there a motion to approve R1519?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Gavin with support from Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the budget as a whole presented through this memo, fund by fund, as far as the amounts that we intend to receive through revenue appropriation, as well as each of the expenditures we have. We are joined this evening, sorry I didn't mention this earlier, but we're joined by our Finance Director, Mr. Mark Pollack, whose department spearheads putting together this document in the proposal form that we bring to City Council to go, as the Mayor mentioned, line by line, this year 9 hours, I think, over 2 nights, to go to look at this line by line and make sure that this is proper and is on the right track for the City of Berkeley. Again, What we have here in the memo that was provided to City Council goes through each of the city's funds. That's everything from the general fund, which is our largest, to the sidewalk fund, the court fund. Those funds we don't typically use this year, but we're excited to activate in new ways in the fiscal year 18-19 budget. Or the 19-20 budget, my apologies. I don't know if Finance Director has any additional items.
I'll just add, again, I appreciate the process that you follow here through your budget. It was excellent. The Finance Office, I'll refer to as a well-oiled machine. Lori and Sue do a great job. I stepped into a really good situation here because although immediately I had to get started with a budget, I'm familiar with budgets, and you do an excellent job here. And I will state during your work sessions, you did have some concerns that one of the residents expressed earlier. The OPEB funding, Matt himself had to file because he was in transition at the time with the finance director, a corrective action plan, which this council approved, which does fund OPEB. The commitment is anything short of 1.2 million in your retiree health goes to OPEB, to your trust. And you do have just over $5 million in that trust. Matt and I believe, and we'll do some requests for recalculation. We don't think they used a realistic return on those monies. I did add at council's request, there's $90,000 in general, and then in the public safety end, there's another 60. So we did add a $150,000 commitment in the next year's budget to make those OPEB payments as you requested. We also made some smaller line item changes that you had requested from the directors. I know Derek's job is the longest because he's responsible for so many funds, but both he and Sean, again, do an excellent job crunching their numbers. And we did make those changes as well. So what you're approving tonight did incorporate all the changes that you asked the Finance Department to make, including that OPEB contribution, which again, I think I completely agree with the resident. You can't ignore those. You've done an excellent job. You are well ahead of most communities, especially in this area as far as funding goes, and I think the commitment to that should be applauded.
Thank you, Mr. Finance Director, for answering some of those questions that we heard already during the public hearing. And again, as we talked about at our hearings, look, the budget is the most important job of this council, is to be good stewards of the resources and the taxes that we have from the residents, and a budget is, at its core, a certain list of priorities. There have been many years where we have had to shift those priorities just to maintain a level of service that our residents expect and our residents deserve. And we did put off a lot of capital for a number of years just to make sure that we were maintaining a level of service. Now that we are at a position where we can, again, invest in capital, but also fund our promises. Those promises that we have made to folks in our long-term liability is something that was discussed at our budget hearings and was requested by council to increase those contributions. Even though we already satisfy the plan from the state, we still wanted to go a little bit above and beyond where we could to make sure that we were honoring those liabilities. One thing that, if you could just quickly address millage rates and where we are right now and what has happened and how Headley plays a factor into where we are.
Yeah, we do. The annual Headley rollback in Proposal A combined tries to keep taxes to residents around the rate of inflation. We did have rollbacks in all of our millage levies. The new levy that the voters approved back in November already had to be rolled back, which I think caught Matt and I by surprise. But the rules are, since it was approved in November, you have to roll back that millage already for the July levy. So the rate, as we noticed, I think when we look through overall for the city, is around 16.8 in change millage, which is, I think, just about the same or even a little bit less than it was just 3 years ago. So you can see Headley and the rollbacks do kind of take their toll on what can be levied, but you know, it's the same thing everyone in the state of Michigan deals with. The rollback and Proposal A combined make it difficult to get large increases in property tax revenue, but As part of this process, you do a really good job of making sure we maintain and then continue to contribute, especially on the capital end. It's a very aggressive budget. Utilizing your fund balance for capital is a great thing to do. And I'm amazed at how little debt that this community has. And you're able to do, as Councilmember Hennon mentioned, your water and sewer infrastructure, the goal, and still be second from the bottom in Saukwa communities. I live in a community where I think we're second or third from the top, so, and we hear it every year, but same thing, you're trying to maintain infrastructure that's been put in the ground, as much as, 80 to 100 years ago, so.
You mentioned debt. How much debt, what kind of debt are we looking at?
You have your 11 Mile Road bond debt, which has 2 years left of payment, around $550,000, I think, left. And then you still have, it's in the enterprise fund, the water and sewer fund, but you have your debt from the Great Lakes, or through the George W. Kuhn drain system. And I think those payments continue 2024, 25.
Yeah, that's one of the items that's really out of our hands. So that's just by virtue of being in the GWK district, that's levied and assessed on upon us.
So we just have 11 Mile left.
Right.
A couple years left, and that is all the debt that we currently are servicing.
Yeah.
All right. Additional comments from council on the budget that we have before us, the process. As Mr. Pollack mentioned, but I do want to not only thank all the directors for their role in preparing their budgets from basically January through May, but also the work of your office and Sue and Lori, and as you mentioned, a very well-oiled machine. Over the past few years, there has been some rollover in that position, and they have remained constant and continue to provide the work that allows us to be recognized, it seems, on an annual basis for our CAFR and for our budget. So that is a testament to you and the team as well.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick comment. I think all the directors this year came into that budget meeting very well prepared. They knew what their budget was. They were prepared to answer questions, and it went very smoothly. So I commend the city manager for keeping the directors on track and cracking the whip, and they did a really good job and were well informed.
It's a great team.
Councilmember Stedman?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment about the directors, too. They start their process in January, right after New Year's, and they have to sit down in multiple meetings, talk to all of their staff, and narrow down what is important to them, what is most important, and what do they have to have, and pick and choose for whatever their department is going to be allotted. So they do a wonderful job every year, and I thank them very much.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I guess continuing the theme here, and building on that story, the results of that work is culminated in this material here, and as was mentioned, thanks to you and your team, and again to all the department heads and directors and their staff for all the work that they did to put this together. This was what we had fun reviewing together for an appropriate amount of time. I think we had good conversation about all the items in here, and the level of precision and clarity that this material brings to us is only equaled by the confidence we have in the thought that went into this content. Now, as a plan, certainly this is a good starting point, and life happens, and we have the amendment process, which I think we take appropriate use of. Coming into this with our best foot forward, I think, is a really good approach, and I'm glad to see where we're at. So thank you.
Do you have something you want to move on? No, you're good? Okay. Councilmember Hennon.
Yeah. So I'm really happy with this budget. I think we're in as good a position as we can be with the constraints that the state puts on us. But I think we really have one serious problem with this. I'd hoped by this point the DDA board would have stepped up and performed their proper oversight. I brought these issues I'm going to mention to their attention. They said they'd be in touch, but then there was silence, and they've just failed the city in this regard. It's become clear because of the behavior of the DDA director, she can no longer be effective in Berkeley. She's brought a lot of good, but her complete unwillingness to cooperate and unwillingness to take accountability for her own actions, I think, has made it impossible to be her effective. And City Council, we're the last line of defense here. If the DDA won't control their director, it falls to us. You know, at this point, I feel for us to allow her to remain is to endorse her behavior. And I can't support a budget that includes money for her contract. Therefore, I'm making the following motion. I move to strike the DDA from the city budget and send it back to the DDA board until such time as Vivian Carmody is no longer employed by the DDA.
We now have a second motion on the table. Mr. Attorney?
Has that motion been seconded?
No, it has not yet. So is there a second to the motion on the table? Motion made by Councilmember Hennon. Seeing or hearing no second, the motion on the table is no longer.
Fails for lack of support, Your Honor.
Okay. And we are back to our first motion on the 2019-2020 budget. Are there any additional comments on that item? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on R1519?
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
No.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 15?
Ordinance number
Already
00419.
moved on, Wendy, I'm sorry. Apologize. Ms. Boucher?
Ordinance number 0419, matter of considering the second reading of an ordinance to add new Article 12, residential grading and drainage standards to Chapter 26, buildings and building regulations of the City of Berkeley Code of Ordinances to establish standards for residential grading and drainage and to prescribe a penalty for violations. Full copy of this ordinance is posted for 10 days at the Berkeley City Hall, Library, and Community Center.
Is there a motion to approve 00419?
So
Motion
moved.
approved. Support.
Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, typically a second reading would come back to you under the consent agenda, but did want to call attention specifically to a couple of revisions that were made since the first reading up to now. Mr. McLean has provided you a memo outlining the 4 sections that were updated, in the sections and the calling your attention specifically to it, as well as a summary statement of what was changed. So did not want to let that go by without the potential for a discussion by council to make sure it reflects the conversation we had at the previous meeting.
Okay. Mr. McLean?
I have nothing additional to add unless the council has questions for me about changes in the for the second reading.
Can we just go over the changes that were made, just to make sure everyone's on board with everything?
Yes, sir. Looking at section 26-336A, we added language requiring that the grading plan be sealed and prepared by a licensed engineer, surveyor, or architect. That language was added to ensure that this is a certified professional that's doing the grading plan. Under section B, we made a minor revision requiring that the plan depict 1-foot contours rather than the 2-foot contours in the original version. Looking at section C, we added language saying that there will be no certificate of occupancy or temporary C of O until approved as-built drawings have been submitted. Under section E, we added some language to allow for smaller projects. One of the points that Councilmember Hennon brought up is, what if somebody's looking to do like a larger accessory structure, a garage, or a very minor addition? So the language that was added allows the building official some discretion to determine whether or not a more detailed grading plan would be required.
Okay. Those were the changes to the ordinance based on conversation that we had last time. Are there additional changes that we would like to make to this ordinance?
I think that covered everything, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Henry.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention on the small project thing, you know, we are giving discretion to the building official on the smaller things, and we always have the opportunity, if that discretion is abused, to take it back and make it, you know, my goal in proposing that was to make sure that we don't make smaller things cost prohibitive, but when much larger projects that are much more likely to have an impact, they're going to, the size of the project can absorb those costs more easily.
Okay.
I have a
Councilmember Dean?
Yes, Councilmember Hennon, you mentioned the discretion of the building official. Is there a framework within which that discretion resides? Are there expectations that he or she would be, you know, upholding? Or, I mean, I guess I'm just concerned that, you know, we say we're giving discretion, but then, you know, where's the...
And we've had problems with discretion being abused in the past, absolutely.
Right, so...
yeah, I mean, it's under the heading small projects, you know, that gives some, you know, and gives, you know, landscaping, farming, I'm not sure why I have farming, but gardening, land improvements of a minor nature that don't materially affect, you know, and it's given an informal plan, and then they can make the call on whether to continue or not. So it's something I think we absolutely need to monitor and watch to make sure it isn't abused. But, you know, I didn't want to start out so draconian that, you know, someone couldn't build a raised garden bed in their backyard, you know, sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Additional clarification? Any additional thoughts on this? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on 0419?
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please read item number 16 on tonight's agenda?
Ordinance number 00519, matter of considering the second reading of an ordinance to amend section 106.37 of chapter 106, streets, sidewalks, and other public places to regulate sidewalk obstructions and add Article 7, construction demolition site standards to chapter 106, streets, sidewalks, and other public places to the City of Berkeley Code of Ordinances to establish standards for enclosing, protecting, and maintaining construction and demolition sites, and to prescribe a penalty for violations. Full copy of this ordinance is posted for 10 days at the Berkeley City Hall, Library, and Community Center.
Is there a motion to approve 00519?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Hennon. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to the previous agenda item, this, from the first reading to the second reading, does have an update reflecting the City Council's conversation on the topic. If you look to section 106-304, subsection 1, under fencing, you'll see in green text where we have expanded the definition on when something should be, the duration for which a project should be fenced for. And that is to make sure that they have been, the temporary excavations were filled and any dangerous conditions have been removed. This is a subsequent to our conversation about attractive nuisances at the previous council meeting.
Okay, we have that addition from last time. Are there any additional corrections or changes that we want to make in this ordinance in this reading?
That's good.
Okay, again, last time we spoke about the importance of this, why we're doing this, what it means, moving forward. Any additional comments? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll on 00519?
Hennon?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the next item on our agenda?
Communications, beginning with Councilmember Stedman.
Councilmember Stedman.
I have one issue before you go into communications. Since it was skipped, you said you're sorry. I did have a comment regarding the budget. You earlier, after public hearing, pretty much told the residents, you know, you had a chance to be there. And I did watch every minute of it. It was recorded by Berkeley Citizens United. And also, for you to, you know, say to two people who commented, you had a chance. You had a public hearing. You had no business telling people, you know, you had a chance to come and listen to us. Why did you have a public hearing then? Dan, you're out of line by not.
I'm out of, well, Wendy, I appreciate your comments, and this is not the time for you to comment now.
Okay, I'm just letting you
Hold
know
on,
I
please.
did not get a chance because you skipped over. When a gentleman's standing here, you can't see if anybody else has something to say.
That may be true that I couldn't
That's all I had
see.
to say, is to let you know that to belittle people because they were not there at the.
Oh, I didn't belittle anybody,
Oh,
Wendy.
you did.
No,
Oh, but
and,
you
and
did.
my comment was not
Your
meant to do that
comment
in
was
any
that
way. All right,
We
all right.
had plenty of time to be there, and.
This is not the time for this. You are out of order in this part.
And so were you by skipping through and taking a vote
Well-
before you made sure anybody else had a comment.
Okay, thank you for your comments. That was not the case. Although there is no reason for me to comment on that, I am still going to before my communications. My comments were not at all trying to belittle anybody, and I don't know that anybody else took it that way. My comments were that we have a process and we want resident input. It has nothing to do with belittling anybody. We do it in open meetings to have conversations with anybody that want to have those while we're going line by line. Certainly, we have a public hearing here. It was open today, and we will now move on to communications with Councilmember Stedman because that is where we are in this meeting.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, the citizens, the Community Engagement Advisory Committee, when we meet in June, we will be concentrating on the Block Ambassador Program. And that program, I think the notices are going to go out prior to that meeting. I'm not quite sure, but I think they are. We meet the first Wednesday in June. Library, please check your website. There are a lot of programs being offered, way too many to go through every single one of them. But please check the website. There are wonderful ones. I'm going to one tomorrow night. It's on how to use the Instant Pot that I've now had for 3 months and have not used. So hopefully I will learn something at that meeting, at that presentation. Beautification Committee, the last time we met there, we talked about a Clark's Garden project, which we have to actually, that would be between Clark's and the antique store to actually plant some flowers around there. Liz Petrie, you would be very happy about that. We are going to try to coordinate this with the Downtown Development Authority. The main project of the year is going to be the focus on the Oxford Towers Park on Harvard near the tennis courts, and this will involve mostly planting shade and plants around the pine trees. Parks and Rec has already added a lot to this park, including seating areas and a sandbox. I drove down there by there today. It's really very nice. Tree walk. Last year we had a tree walk. I think we had it maybe in June, May. But anyways, it might have even been earlier than that. We found that it was too early, too close to the time where the deadline was where you can purchase trees from the city. So we're going to have another tree walk in early August, late July or early August, where we find properties that do not have trees in the median or in the where the city plants the trees, and leave them a flyer reminding them that they can purchase a tree and the city will plant it for them, so that we can fill up some of the spaces where trees have been removed. That is all I have for that. But I want to congratulate Jeff Tong for being Citizen of the Year, Matt Church for being Humanitarian of the Year. They are both well-deserving people. And also the Berkeley Days Committee, you are fantastic. Every time I turned around, I saw Sue Sotero and Denise Brainerd they were doing everything. You were just wonderful. You had wonderful help. Probably not enough, but you put off a wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Well, I've got a couple of things left after Councilmember Stedman. I too would like to thank the Berkeley Days Committee for a great job. It was well run and a great event for the city. And also a big thank you to youth assistants for doing the Taste of Berkeley. I think everybody that was there enjoyed it. It was well run and a great time. This is National EMS Week, and this year's theme for National EMS Week is Beyond the Call. So I'd like to thank our EMS provider, Alliance Mobile Health, for the great job that they do for the city. As an example, they had an ambulance and 2 bike medics at Berkeley Days the whole time, just going around making sure that anybody that came off a ride and stumbled and skinned their knee was taken care of. And those that came off the ride and were throwing up were taken care of if they needed it. So they did a great job. And we're very lucky to have them working for the city. The Chamber Art Bash is coming up soon, 8 June. About 150 artists will be participating. So it'll be another good time down on 12 Mile. So look forward to seeing you down there on the 8th of June. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too would like to congratulate the Berkeley Days group. They did a terrific job, and again, especially with the recognition to Jeff Tong and Matt Church. Much deserved and appreciated. Our Downtown Development Authority continues to get feedback about the Coolidge Safety Plan, and many of the additional input is also welcome on the Downtown Master Plan overlay work that's being discussed. For information on that, you can visit the downtownberkeleyplan.com for more information on that, and then, of course, to see all the events and activities that are coming up in our downtown, another website, downtownberkeley.com. Our historical committee meeting was aligned with Mother's Day, so they did the right thing and stayed with their families. So they'll be meeting again next month. But in the meanwhile, that gives you even more time to come to the museum to check out Berkeley's favorite dining spots, which is a new display of meals gone by, from featuring Sila's, Domenico's, Nip and Tuck, the Northwood Inn, and many other fine establishments. Come and see those and relive memories at our museum, which is open most Sundays from 2 o'clock till 4 o'clock, and on most Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Technology Advisory Committee, on that note, they met recently as well. Not on Mother's Day, so they were able to convene. And in that discussion, which was after the budget hearings, we talked a little bit about the many times with which technology and our Chief Innovation Officer was mentioned throughout the budget sessions. As we see technology becoming more pervasive in both municipal operations and in the services that we provide to our residents, the ability to leverage technology, the accuracy of data, and the ability to make better informed decisions based on the information we have becomes all that more paramount. And so I was pleased to hear the other directors mentioning the contributions of our IT staff to help keep the city moving forward, and the Technology Advisory Committee is excited to help be a part of that as well. And finally, it was William McDonough who once said, "The Stone Age did not come to the end because humans ran out of stones. It ended because it was time for a rethink about how we live." And the budgets give us an opportunity to think about how we want to live and to stop doing some things and start doing other things. And again, that diligent work from the employees and staff and the volunteer input to help make this come together has been tremendous. We've made a lot of progress as a city, even just in the last 10 years as we look around us here. And as we look to the future, it's our opportunity to heed that call of progress and to continue to find ways to move us forward, because otherwise, if we're not moving forward, then we're slipping back. So let's keep that inquisitive focus going and the positive energy that will drive us for years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes, thank you. Just to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, I really do enjoy the budget work sessions. I know that sounds crazy, but it gives us the opportunity to look line by line from each department and see what's important to them, where they're putting their resources, what they've decided to wait on. So it gives us really a nice picture of how things are taking shape and where things are going. Echoing also the comments about Berkeley Days, it was such a great community event. I had the opportunity to volunteer at the pancake breakfast Saturday morning, and while it was rather sparsely attended, the pancakes were very good, and the people that did come were fun to be around. Matt Church and Jeff Tong, both recipients of very well-deserved awards, two really active and involved members of our community, and I'm proud to know them both. My favorite part of Berkeley Days was the bike parade. Natalie McClure and her children rode in the bike parade, and I don't know how old her son is that rode his scooter. I want to say he was probably 4, the entire thing on a scooter. It was amazing. And he was like the little engine that could. And so it brought a smile to my face. And also kudos to Alliance. Their bike medics also were in the bike parade, basically bringing up the rear and making sure that those kids were safe. So thanks again to everybody involved with Berkeley Days. I have nothing to report this week from Parks and Rec, but stay tuned because I have a lot coming up at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hennon.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention briefly that I did not find the mayor's comments belittling. I just found them as informative of what the process we take. On the tree board, there's a large number of projects they have going on, so I'm just going to hit 2 of the highlights. We got access to a citywide tree survey from 1998. It's a stack of old dot matrix printer paper that big, that huge thing. And one of our members have taken it upon herself to start entering in that data. So we'll have tree baseline data back from 1998, so we can see how our canopy has changed over time and make informed decisions from that. We're also looking at root barriers, considering the viability of starting to use them when we plant new trees to help mitigate any possible sidewalk damage that might occur. And then our next meeting is on Monday, June 10th at 7 p.m. at the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the spirit that there can never be too many thank yous, I also would like to say thank you to the Berkeley Days Committee and volunteers for putting on such a great event all through all their hard work. The dedication is really just amazing. So, and just another example of what makes Berkeley so great. So thank you very much. And of course to Jeff and Matt as well, congratulations on a very, very well-deserved individual award. So a couple quick things. Planning Commission, there was no meeting since our last council meeting. The next meeting will be next Tuesday, the 28th at 7:30 here in the chambers. Coolidge Committee, again, no meeting since our last committee, and the next one will likely be Thursday, June 6th at 8 a.m., but not set in stone yet, so just keep an eye out for that. On the Environmental Committee, the next meeting is Thursday, May 23rd at 6:30, so this Thursday in the Public Safety Building, and there'll be a review of the latest draft of the environmental plan before it's presented to council for consideration. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Baumgartner.
Thank you, sir. Last week, for those that didn't know, were Police and Public Safety Appreciation Week. It was phenomenal to watch the outpouring of support that we have for Berkeley Public Safety. We know they're great because we get to work with them every day. But I love seeing people come out and make a special, go out of their way to make sure that they know that they're appreciated by. I think almost everybody except for those that are getting handed a ticket. And even then, most of those people walk away saying, you know what, they were right, I was wrong, and they treated me with respect. So great organization once again, and it's great to see them get their due over the course of last week. Baumgarten family also owes the Berkeley Days Association a great debt of thank yous. Had a blast start to finish. Denise Brainerd, Sue, and Lisa, and just everybody that put a hand in and hands and bloods and sweats and everything that went into making sure that was a hit. Mother Nature even waited until Sunday afternoon to dump on us this year, which was a nice change of events. But again, great job by all. The Sherbreck family, I'm not sure the Sherbreck family that comes and actually provides the entertainment itself. they are just absolutely top notch from the top to the bottom. They're wonderful, and we had a great time with it. Last but not least, I again chat with Matt coming up. We're going to be in J.C. Park this time next Wednesday, the 29th at 6:30. Hopefully, again, weather cooperates then as well. We'll be under the pavilion, just having a real informal conversation about what we love about the community. And it's great to do that face-to-face. Social media is fine and all, email's fine and all, but it's great to know your neighbors by their name, their face, and their voice. So I look forward to hopefully having a good experience there. That's all, sir.
Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
You sure?
I am sure.
Okay. I have just a few comments tonight. First off, I too want to congratulate Matt Church and Jeff Tong, Humanitarian of the Year and Citizen of the Year, very well deserving. And aside from just the entire Berkeley Days Committee, they do a phenomenal job, but with Denise stepping down and this being her last year, I want to shout out a little special to Denise Brainerd. We're getting there, right? We're getting there right now. Yes, we are. For the first time in I don't know how long, City Council and staff is bringing home the hardware in the annual softball game. And we've been playing this throughout City Hall, and it will continue. We have 1 year to celebrate. And we also regained our horseshoe trophy as well. It was a horseshoe pitching contest that I lost. Lisa destroyed me, but council, it's a team game, and we were able to pull that out as well. And again, all the Berkeley Days festivities, as Matt mentioned, only a little bit of weather on Sunday, but that did not dampen what was a tremendous week of activities and weekend of activities. And our residents and those that visited certainly enjoyed their time, and the Sherbecks do just a tremendous job with that. The last item that I have today is, as you already heard, but you may not have picked up, Councilmember Gavin gave the Environmental Advisory Committee update. We have a shift in our liaisons. Councilmember Hennon will now be liaison to the ZBA. Councilmember Gavin will be the liaison to the Environmental Advisory Committee, and those were changes requested by both of my colleagues, and I certainly have no problem with that. We want everyone to be a liaison to places where they're interested and excited and invigorating, and so good luck on your new appointments, and thank you for your service in your prior roles. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mayor Pro Tem with support from Council Member Stedman. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes, the May 20th, 2019 meeting of the 37th Council has been adjourned.